Welcome to the ThunderCast, your Marshall Athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans, with your hosts, Russ Livingood and KD Hudnall. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week, so keep it right here. The ThunderCast is on the loose. Thanks for downloading another episode of the ThunderCast. You can follow us on Twitter at ThunderCast_pod. It's really easy to find the ThunderCast, but I tell you what, we haven't talked about this in a long time, Russ. I think it's time again to plead with everyone that listens to our show to share the link with your fellow Herd fans so that we can continue to grow our listener base help more Herd fans stay connected to more Herd athletics news and goings on. So we've seen the week, or not really the week, the seasons wind down for a lot of our sports. It's postseason time for a lot of the remaining sports, but we still have some good news to talk about. We still have some cool things to talk about. But of course, before we get into all of that, I think it's time we get a word from our sponsors at Leasure Oliver PLLC.
If you've been hurt in a wreck, call the law firm of Leasure Oliver PLLC. Find them at 304carwreck.com.
Now, we saw last episode, it was the wrapping up of the track and field season, the softball season. There was some news on several recruiting fronts, and I know a little bit of that continued. Plus, we've got some I don't know that it's surprising news to some, but some cool stuff nonetheless. So let's get into it with at least 5 things every Herd fan needs to know this week.
How about 7 things every Herd fan needs to know this week? As always, brought to you by IgniteLink, the Tri-State's premier IT management team. I'm going to start off number 1. I think this was a no-brainer. Bryce Blevins named first team All Sunbelt Conference.
Yeah. If you're a 4-time SBC pitcher of the week, I think it stands to reason that you had yourself one hell of a season. Mm-hmm. And we said this many times about Bryce. It wasn't just a really killer week or one great performance. If you do it to the tune of an SBC pitcher of the week 4 times, you sustained over the course of a season. And he did, man. What a dominating season for Bryce. And I really wish that his win-loss record would have reflected that for him, just for him personally. Of course, it also would have meant more team success for the Herd, which obviously we want to see too. But man, Bryce Blevins, I tweeted this, was the slam dunk pick for Marshall in the SPC era for first team all-conference selections, because nobody has achieved on an of the week accolade except for maybe the great Abby Herring. Mm-hmm. Like Bryce has during this season. I don't think anybody could argue against it. I don't think any other team, fan base, coach anywhere could say, well, my guy got left out, and kind of look at Bryce and go, and I'm not sure that Bryce should have got the nod. This was an absolute no doubt selection. And it's one that in a rough season, outside of the memories that we'll always have of opening the Jack, Trey Hondras home run to open the Jack, which will live on forever for Herd posterity. This was the brightest of bright spots for another, what you would have to call rebuilding year for Greg Beals and Herd baseball, man. This was the coolest thing to come out of that all season long.
Yeah. We talked about run support. We talked about his record and everything, wins in baseball. No one says, hey, the center fielder lost the game today. No one says the first baseman lost the game, but they say the pitcher loses the game because they get tagged with the win or the loss. And I get they're the one that's throwing. But people that are in the know have devalued the wins and losses over the peripherals of, opponent's batting average, walks and hits per innings pitched, whip, ERA, the things that they can control, walk to strikeout ratio. Bryce has been doing it all year. He's had a couple games where he didn't. But I mean, that's the difference between being like perfect and being above average, right? You're going to have a game every now and then where you just can't do it. But the win-loss record is not indicative of the year that he had. He was dominant at times. Those 4 weeks that he won it were not the only huge performances he put in. Just happened to run into a bigger buzzsaw in that Louisiana game that we talked about a couple of times. So the performance he put in, obviously something that we're looking forward to build off of next year. Great, great, great accolade for him. He was the only person to make it. No one on the second or third teams or anything like that. Saw that to be a little bit surprising, but again, we didn't finish in the top 10 in the standings. Everyone in the top 10 had teams that had RPIs in the right around 100 and above, and some of those were in the high numbers in their rankings. So this is a very competitive conference, very good conference. So when you say, yeah, it's a little bit surprising, when you start looking at the people and their stats and their performances, it's not really that surprising. This is a tough league to do, and I think that makes his first team selection all the more powerful.
Yeah, that's when it comes down to wins and losses. If you're looking at position players and things like to land on an all-conference team, you're just going to have to be a better winning team in
Right.
order to get the edge over some of those players. So
Mm-hmm.
it's I get it. I get it. I mean, I can't argue. Just like I said, no other coach or player or whatever can argue against Bryce Landon. I can't argue that our guys, one of our guys, deserve a spot over somebody else because
Sure.
as a team, they were just better.
Mm-hmm.
They just were. So that's the case sometimes, and that's the
Yeah.
case this year. So all you can do is try to become more competitive, try to win more games, try to recruit stronger at more positions, and just become a better team. There are teams that do this perennially. They
Mm-hmm.
are in the College World Series type playoff every year.
Mm-hmm.
When we heard Christian Spears tell us, really, you just need to be one of the top 4 teams in this conference. That's how competitive it is, and
Mm-hmm.
that's true. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not like you want to play for 4th place, so to speak. But if you win enough games and you happen to land in that 4th spot, there's a good chance you could make it to the postseason after the conference tournament is done. So it's a rebuild. We've talked about it. I don't think anybody that is willing to set through this rebuild is sitting here going right now like, all right, something's got to happen, because this is a multi-year thing, and we
Yeah.
know this is year 1 of a ballpark,
Mm-hmm.
year 2 for Greg Beals. So now you really get to start to build a team in your image. You've got the full sale, you've got the full laundry list of facilities and things that you can pitch and attract talent with, and it's just going to take time, man. It's just going to take time. And never mind that all while this time is going on for our rebuild, these other teams are just continuing to stay strong because they have a tradition of winning. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy at all.
Number 2, keeping with baseball, Owen Ayers breaks the doubles record for Marshall baseball with 24. Reminder, it was the record that he had set last year.
Rowan Ayers sets the record, breaking the record by Owen Ayers from a year ago. I think that's just worded funny. It sounds funny. It's fun to say, but good season, right? Good
Mm-hmm.
season. Like, records are records, man. And I love talking about records getting broken. It was a good season for Owen, man. It really was. And I can say a lot of the same things. I just wish it translated to more team success, but it
Mm-hmm.
ultimately didn't. I think we know that Marshall needs more pop in the lineup. They need to
Mm-hmm.
be able to plate more runs. They need to be able to take advantage of every single time that dominant pitching is on the mound. They need to be able to notch that as a win.
Yeah.
And a lot of times this year, we just weren't able to do that. So, great individual seasons here and there. But overall, we just need to have more great individual seasons to add up to more team success. But breaking your own record, still pretty cool.
Sliding over to softball, number 3, Brooklyn Ulrich and Bella Gerlach named to the NFCA All-Region teams. Ulrich made the first team. Gerlach made the third team.
Yeah, just when we thought that the softball season was kind of over from a, what did you do this season standpoint, this comes along. And Marshall's really no stranger to that type of stuff. We talked about that this kind of thing, all region teams last year. And I remember us talking about how the regions were weird and how we ended up in the same
Oklahoma.
region with Oklahoma,
Yeah.
who was by far the best team in the country.
They're okay.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
all right. They're an up and coming team.
I think they lost 4 games in the last 20 years or something.
So to do this is impressive, man. You know, we did it last year with a handful of players. We've done it this year. Another multiple player type season for the Herd. This is not anything to go, oh, great, you know, cool. It's not just another like all Sun Belt Conference team. That's not your region. I mean, you think about going up against some of the powerhouses in the country and being able to land players at positions over some of the most top tier teams in the country is a huge deal. And that's a big to me is a big recruiting tool for Coach Morgan Zirkle, right? Because yeah, Brooklyn was here. Bella just came here. It's a portal player that just came here. So those are 2 recruiting feathers that you have in your cap. You know, we've got some returning star power. We can develop that star power here because, you know, Brooklyn goes from a contributing player last year to a first team all conference player this year. Bella comes in year 1, a portal player that really didn't have stats that blew you away at her previous stop, and comes here and performs at an all conference level and an all region level. That's what we're talking about. You know, it's one step at a time. So now Coach Zirkle and her staff can say, hey, we can develop you while you're here, and we can help unleash your potential in year 1 here. These are big things because now we get to turn our sights to softball portal, softball signings, all that kind of stuff. This is where the rubber meets the road, where you really get a good idea of what you're going to look like for the next season. And we have been saying all along that this upcoming season will be the better indicator of what Morgan and her staff are able to do moving forward.
Number 4, Brianna Ellis joins the women's basketball staff as Assistant Director of Operations.
The staff it has got to be nearing completion. And on top of all of that, it's recruiting time, it's portal time. You know, the Julie Folks era. While kind of quiet, you know, in the grand scheme, it's quiet, but that just tells me that like right now they don't have time to just be hanging out on social media. Like they got work to do. They got a staff to fill out. They've got a roster to fill out. They've got, you know, our own players to re-recruit, which we have seen already happen. You know, some of the biggest pieces of what we expect to be Marshall women's basketball next year return to the Herd. On top of now, you got to hit the portal, you got to hit high school recruiting, and you know we're seeing some of that. But to round out the staff, I think that's a huge step in the right direction because that's now things that come off of Coach Falk's plate to allow her to more intently focus on building out her roster.
Yeah, here's a little bit more about Bree Ellis. She comes to us from Tennessee Tech. She served as the director of operations there for the last 2 seasons, overseeing all travel and logistical aspects of the program, even recruiting visits, coordinated on those, a liaison for community outreach. So a little bit of everything of here's what we need to do as a program, allowing the head coach to coach. And to recruit. Prior to there, she was at her alma mater, which is Missouri State, and she was helping them do events, ceremonies, that sort of thing. She also did some color commentating for Missouri State and was a radio host for ESPN Plus because she got her degree in broadcast journalism from there and is pursuing her master's degree in communications. So very well-rounded. And I think it's an excellent hire to step into that role and have someone doing all this coordinating, especially with her communications background.
Yeah, sounds like somebody that might be a good fit to come on sometime and give us the goings on with the Herd, maybe, and everybody else the goings on with the Herd.
Maybe replace me, the dead link, you know. All right, number 5, we have Abby Herring. There's that name again. Kylie Maston, Rebecca Merritt, and Tyra Thomas will compete in the first round of the NCAA championships in the East region.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Some of them thought their careers were over.
Mhm.
They thought they were done running collegiately or competing, but not necessarily running. But no, not just one, not just two, four competitors going to the NCAAs. I don't think I'm surprised to hear. Really, I'm not surprised to hear any of the four names because they have all performed so well all season long. You know, you talk about Diana Goodman and Tyra that eyeballing the 100-meter hurdles record, and you know, and does anybody at all like flinch when you say the name Abby Herring or the name Kylie Maston in terms of making an NCAA run? No, not really. So none of these four surprise me. I think what does surprise me is that it's all four. Not that it's any one of them, but all of them are getting an opportunity to make some noise on a national level. And I think that really further rubber stamps what this women's track and field program is doing and how they have elevated over the years since we've been doing this show. Four is a big deal to me. Last year, you know, it was you know, Abby kind of doing her thing, and this year we get to have four times as much noise potentially made. Man, I am freaking here for it all the way, and I hope everybody else is here for it too.
So here's the events. Abby Herring is going to be running the 10K, and what really was the shocker to me is nothing. You know, I agree with everything you said. What shocked me is this is the first time Abby will be at the NCAA events. That I, for some reason, I thought that she did that last year, and I'm
She
just.
did.
It says right here, be the seniors' first track and field championships.
No way. I remember watching the video that she didn't know she was going to make it. Remember, like they showed her the time and she maybe they meant for this discipline because I want to say she either ran the 5 or the 3K last year, but she most certainly went to the NCAAs last year. I remember the
That's what I
flurry.
thought.
I remember the flurry of social media posts and the videos of her like you know, heading off to compete. Like that was a thing. I remember seeing that.
We'll have to look that up because that was in my head that she ran last year, and we talked about it here
Yeah,
on the show.
we
But
did.
it says right here, it will be the seniors' first track and field championships. Maybe that was a totally different, wasn't called the track and field championships. I don't know,
I
but
think it was like a regionals or something like that,
well, that's what this is.
but it was still on an NCAA level.
I
I
know.
remember that. I'm not saying anybody's wrong, but I know I didn't dream that.
Yeah, no, I mean that's what it says here, but that is a regional, just like I
You know
thought it
what?
was
I tell
last
you
year.
what it is. She competed in the cross country regionals. I bet you last year. Abby Herring makes history at NCAA cross country nationals on Saturday. I bet that's what it was.
So this is the first time then that she will be
Yeah,
in
in
the.
a track and field. That's what it is. It was cross country versus track and field. So
Okay.
yeah, technically the first time, but not the first time she's competed on an NCAA level.
All right. So the other one, Kylie Maston will be doing, of course, the 1500 meter. That's what she won the gold in at the Sun Belt. Rebecca Merritt will be in two. It'll be
I said Diana
discus,
Goodman. I meant Rebecca Merritt. My fault, Rebecca.
discus and the hammer throw, and then Tyra Thomas will be doing the 100-meter hurdles.
Yeah. I said that's my fault. I guess I think I was thinking of all the pole vault success we've had over the past couple of years. My bad. I'll never say it for me, man. I'll never make another mistake. I promise.
See, the only one we'll ever make on this
Only.
show. Number 6, we're going to keep it with track and field. Talk about those 4 athletes, and then add a couple of things.
Okay.
Track and field has 6 on the all conference teams. Abby Herring, Kylie Maston, Rebecca Merritt, Tyra Thomas, of course, we already mentioned. Also, Evan White and Micah Elaine.
Yep. 5 from the women's team, 1 from the men's team, indicative of how the overall programs have performed. Really, they have. I don't think anybody is surprised that Evan White made the team. I think I might be a little surprised that Ronnie Saunders did not get at least some sort of recognition. He performed really well. But the 5 women, I mean, 4 of them are going to go compete in the NCAAs. You know, uh, I don't know what to say about that. I just think they got it right. I think they got it right. You know, everybody that deserved to be there is there. Um, at least, okay. I guess I should say they got it right. There's not like a glaring snub. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? It's not like, oh, you omitted Abby Herring from the all conference team. Are you crazy? So
Right.
I think everybody that deserved to be there is there. The only snub, in my opinion, is somebody else that could have had some recognition that didn't. But I'm okay with this, man. I think it's great. 6 is awesome. Obviously, I would love to see that number triple, quadruple from the men's side, but we know they're playing catch up with
Yeah.
what the women's team is doing.
Yeah.
So, a couple of years from now, we might be singing a different tune. We might be talking about 12, on an all conference team or 10 or whatever. But
I
for
think it's
right now,
headed in that direction.
yeah,
Getting the director of track and field or and cross country, getting Keith Roberts in here to be overseeing all that. Caleb Bone with everything that he's done,
yeah,
on the long distance running. But again, we're 2 years in, and we are also still not any scholarship athletes on there yet on the men's side. So it's going to take just a little bit to catch up when we get there. But it's coming. You can tell from the progress that they are making.
yeah.
Number 7 in our final thing is 75 student athletes graduated this spring. Thoughts?
Uh, what an apt number. It always seems to pop up. It always seems to pop up. So no, it just says we're doing it the right way. I haven't said the word in a long time, but I'm not sure this is actually a differentiator, right? Because this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be a student athlete. Now, I tell you, I don't know. Let me ask you this without ruining anything.
Okay.
Did you write down like all of the team GPAs? Are we going to talk about that later?
We're not going to talk about that. We can if you have them. I didn't write them all down.
I don't, but all I wanted to say about that is some of those team GPAs are utterly ridiculous in a good
Yeah.
way, not in a
Hmm.
bad way, in a good way. That is where the differentiator lies. So all of those I saw on, the Herd Zone
Hmm.
or the individual team like Instagram accounts, and they're on Twitter too. But dude, I think it was our women's golf team maybe was like 3.94 or something like
It
that.
always is.
Wild.
I tell you what I did have prepared is I had the 75 broken down by sport. So I'm not going to go
Okay.
through the names, just the numbers, because I don't want to read off 75 names. And then I had the overall GPA for all of martial athletics, and I think that drives it home. Spring 2024 graduates by sport: baseball had 9, cheerleading had 4, dance had 1, football had 6, men's basketball 2, men's golf 3, men's soccer 4, men's track and cross country had 2, softball had 2, swim and dive had 12,
Yep.
tennis had 3, volleyball had 4, women's basketball had 5, women's golf 1, women's soccer 5, women's track and cross country had 12. So that makes up your 75. And all of Herd Zone athletics, all of Marshall athletes had an overall GPA in the spring 2024 semester of 3.27. And I think that is where your word comes in. It's a
Yeah.
differentiator.
Yeah, it is because that beats my GPA. I'm never shy about saying that.
Yeah, if you added all mine up, all my semesters, I may have broached the 3.27 mark. We'll see.
It always makes me think of my buddy.
They quit him.
They quit me. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the greatest thing. I know. I hope he's listening. I'm not gonna name names, but that's the greatest thing, man. We talk about uh, grades, and I know you make that joke, and that's he made it with the Herd for a year, at least as a student. Still a lifelong fan and all that kind
Sure.
of stuff. But that's what he says. Like, yeah. they quit me. It's like that's just
Some
such a
some of us are later bloomers, you
I
know.
know, man. He really found his stride later in life, and I'm really happy he's doing well. And it ultimately was not a any type of factor in the type of life and happiness that he has. But I just
Yeah,
love that saying.
yeah.
And I never get tired of hearing that. Like, why didn't you go back? Oh, they quit me. Like, all right. So what now? What now?
Well, that does it for another 5 things every herd fan needs to know this week. As always, brought to you by Ignitlink.
Yeah, what a great bunch of things. The trips to the NCAAs is really cool, man, and the all region teams and Bryce Blevins just a no doubter. I love that, man. I really do. I'm really excited to head into the recruiting season, and that's just always my favorite type of type of year. I love when we're playing and competing, obviously, but I really like to know what the future of the herd may look like. And I'll tell you what I really like is that um, this is a good segue, maybe, but I really like that the recruiting seasons for a lot of these Olympic sports is not nearly as tumultuous as football recruiting, and as high profile with the portal because they have the portal too. They all these sports have it. They can come and go, but I like that by and large when someone shows up from an Olympic sport, they're probably going to be there like for the duration. So that's
Mhm.
pretty cool, man. That's one of the things that's really making a lot of our other sports easier to follow and what makes the average fan able to be a larger fan is because you can really get to know these athletes for a number of years and they can really become a fan favorite of yours and they can really become they like legendary, because they're going to be mostly around long enough to achieve on a for a long enough of a duration to where you can really start to talk about them like that. I just think that's really cool, man. But we know that the most of the excitement for most of herd fans revolves around football and men's basketball. So I know there was a little news on that front this week. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, we're going to start off here in Around the Herd by talking about swimming and diving before we get
Okay.
into those things. Just wanted to finalize what Paige Banton did. If you remember, we had
Yeah.
one event that we got to talk about where she reached the B final,
Mm-hmm.
and she took 20th overall in the B final. In the other event, remember she was in two in the breaststroke, two different distances. She finished 18th in the B finals, so reached the B finals in both of the disciplines that she competed in. And again, we are talking about the Canadian Olympic team.
Mm-hmm.
So if that doesn't tell you the level of performance, we talked about it last week, just to reach the trials and then to reach the finals, even though it's the B finals, reach the finals in there says a lot about where she was at.
Yeah, it says top 20 finish in both disciplines. So just making the finals to me, if you're going to go and compete, and if you're like, all right, I'm probably not like in contention to win these things. So even if I don't know what your mindset is, my mindset would hopefully be, well, I'm here to win, so I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, you've got to be happy with that. Like you didn't get ousted in the prelims, you like compete and made it to the finals and you finished in the top 20 in both disciplines in which you competed.
Yeah.
That's got to make you feel good, man. It's
It
got
should.
to.
It should. I think even as we mentioned, even being invited there should make you feel good because think of the hundreds and thousands of people
Yeah.
that do not, and
Yeah.
then to get there, reach the B finals in both of those, it's great.
Yeah. I'm hats off to Paige, man, because it was a good season for the herd. And then you get like to you get to go compete at events that, let's face it, it just ranks so much higher than anything you're doing in a Marshall swim cap. You know what I mean? Like this is the Olympics, dude. Like that's it's just on another level, and it's just been a really good. 2024 was really good to Paige Band, and I hope that 2025 is better because she's just very, 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 very talented in the pool. So keep developing. Let's turn those top 20s into top 15s into top 10s and so on and so forth, man. But I am over the moon for her. That is awesome.
She was on the list of people that graduated, so I don't know if there's been an announcement if she's going to, finish and has another year or not. But if she does come back, that would be an amazing cornerstone
Sure.
amongst all the others. But wherever she decides to compete
Yeah.
in 2025, whether it's for a national team or whatever, she has a great thing to build on. Now we're going to get into some of these recruitment things that you alluded to. Football, we picked up a transfer from Tennessee State, Monroe Beard the third. He's a 6'1", 220-pound linebacker.
Yeah, and this is the piece I think that we have been needing to find in that linebacker room after the departure of four so quickly. We needed someone that has been there and done that, and has, as much as we talk about not being able to talk about stats, you still like to see them and go, okay, all right, because Monroe was at Tennessee State and ended up being a first team all conference selection. Now, if you remember, the Big South and the Ohio Valley kind of did this merging type thing to where their all conference teams are made up of both teams from both conferences. So it's the
Mm-hmm.
all Big South, hyphen OVC, all
Mm-hmm.
conference team. And he had a really, really great season. This tells me the guy has a nose for the football and loves to be in on the action, right? 95 tackles.
In only 9 games.
Yeah, right. You need that. You need to be able to plug in 100 tackles somewhere, 53 of those solo. So he's doing hard work alone more than half of the time. And then it's, a handful of tackles for loss, a handful of pass breakups, a handful of hurries, and he came down with an interception. So I don't know how this is going to translate to what the herd is going to do defensively, but this feels like a really clean up the mess type linebacker. It's not necessarily a guy, at least what the stats tell me, that is going to be a big pass rushing threat. It could be a part of his game, but when you talk about an athlete like Mike Green coming off of the edge, and whoever they put across from him, and that defensive line, who knows what's going to get freed up. But what this tells me is now you potentially have a linebacker that just cleans up the mess. He's always in and around every action. No matter where the play goes, he's in on the action, right? So that, to me, if being a pass rusher isn't a big part of his game, that allows other guys to be able to do that, because this dude's going to be around the ball all the time. I think this is a great pickup for the herd. Anytime you can get an all conference selection, somebody who was let's face it, man, he plays one more game. If he gets 10 games in the season, he's probably notched over 100 tackles. And that's just hard to do. That's just, you have to stay healthy and you have to be in on around the football to have an opportunity to do that. I think this is what Marshall has needed. This is the boost that we needed to that second level to go along with some of the guys that are returning on the roster and some other guys that we've brought in. But like I said, for as much as we talk about, you can't really pay attention to stats, because most often it's guys that were either buried on the depth chart at other schools or they're looking for a new opportunity, whatever it is. This is one we can look at and go, this could translate really well. You
Yeah.
actually have hard data. So
Yeah. If you're looking at a defensive back stats, you could say, well, he doesn't have many interceptions. He doesn't have many tackles. He doesn't. Maybe he's so good they don't throw his way. But if you look at a middle linebacker's tackling stats, that's going to tell you if he's in on the other plays and everything. And the ones that are solo, that are the majority of his, tell me quite a bit. I got a little bit of info before I throw it back to you here.
Okay.
At one point, he was the top transfer at his position that was in the portal. Amongst one of the rankers. Can't remember which one it was, but they had him at number 1 for a while. And he had received interest from Georgia Tech, Kansas State, and SMU before deciding on the herd. So highly sought after from Eddie George, his crew there at Tennessee State. I think he's exactly what we need, to add to that linebacking crew. The only thing I'm going to have to ask him is, you cannot have a name like Monroe Beard the third and just have a little bit on your chin. I'm going to need a full beard. I'm going to need, some bulk on that. I think that he needs to have just jutting out from the chin strap. He needs to have a massive beard going into the season. So if you're listening, get started on growing your beard.
Well, I wish I could say that you never know what the West Virginia effect will have, but it's coming from Tennessee, so I don't know that I can really make that argument. But here's the line I want to draw just for context. I like doing this for fans and stuff. When most fans will think about Eli Neal, you think about a linebacker who was always around the football, right? And Eli was our leading tackler last year, 93 tackles, right? So that tells you what type of player that you may potentially be getting here. Now, of course, they're not the same player. This is not the same defense. And we're not going to be playing up against the same offenses. So many things are different. But if you're just looking at a stat by stat comparison, Eli went 93 total tackles last year with 34 solo tackles. Now, he did have quite a few more tackles for loss, but that's not to say that won't translate to what we're doing here. But 93 for Eli, 95 for Monroe Beard. And of course, Eli and Steven Dix Jr. went 1 and 3 in total tackles. So they were able to, play synergistically, and their skill sets benefited each other. So now it's not exclusive. We have to see what that linebacking core is going to look like. We have to see who's going to be playing at that second level. But this is just an indicator of the type of production that you have to replace. You have to replace 150 some tackles between two guys. The number 1 and number 3 tacklers on the team are gone. J.J. Roberts was number 2. He returns. And Owen Porter was number 4. He's gone. Deani Hill's number 5. He's gone. So there's a lot of, and Elijah Alston was number 7. He's gone. So there's a lot of tackling production that has to be rebolstered across this defense. And Monroe Beard in this stat line is, to me, initially a great start at piecing that back together. So we'll see.
Right. Men's basketball also picked up a transfer. This is from Florida A&M. Jalen Spear. He's a 6-foot point guard, but not only getting 4 assists per game, but he had 15.5 points per game. So productive point guard that we have been looking for.
I don't know if this is the one we've been waiting on, but man, it is nice to have at least some question answered to the potential point guard situation. We know that we needed one. We know that Jalen Spear can be that guy. Is he the only guy? I don't know. Well, we don't know. But it's nice to know that there is at least something in the category now. Now we can look to just see what other damage we can do. Portal recruiting, I don't know. Portal or high school, I don't know. But you're right. 6'1", 170. Led the team at FAMU. 15.5 per game, like you said. 4 assists, 3.5 boards. What I like is some of the other things that we talk about quite a bit. Almost 44% from the floor, hovering around 39% from 3-point range. That's the kind of stuff we like to see. And he averaged about 33 minutes a game. So he's on the floor quite a bit. So, like I said, I'm not sure that this is the only guard we'll see or the only point guard type guard that we'll see. But man, Coach Jackson and the Herd fan base needed this. They needed this bit of information. So I'm excited to have Jalen here. I'm excited to see how he's going to fit in with Nate and Obina and Dawson and Fricks and everybody else that might be coming back and who else might be coming in, because there's we recruited the twin brothers and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of pieces moving around still. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know how many, if any, scholarships are still available. I don't know. But there have been a lot of Herd fans that have been waiting for the point guard, news. And tell you what, Marshall could have done a hell of a lot worse than what they just got. So welcome to the Herd, Jalen Spear.
Yeah, I think a point guard was needed, but a scoring point guard that hits 39 from behind the arc is, I don't know, maybe perfect for this sort of offense. I mean, when you think about what successes we have had over the years, we have always had that, since Dan and what Corny will tweak of Dan's offense, we have always ran through the point guard,
Oh yeah.
right? And scored through the point guard. And I think a return to that, because last year it was more through Nate Martin as a more of a point forward when he was a power forward, but he played up at the top of the key. You run the offense through him. It just seems to work better with a scoring point guard, and that's what we got here. So interested to see how it shakes out.
Well, of course, man. I think if you I don't think anybody can argue that like you need a true scoring point guard that can not only be a threat offensively but also can distribute. It
Mm-hmm.
just dude, when I don't know how heavily we're going to rely on the three ball and the corner three like Dan talks about, but you have to have a guy
Mm-hmm.
that can bring attention to him to collapse a defense in order to find that open corner
Yeah.
three, right? You have to have that. And Marshall hasn't had that like legitimate threat since Taylor left, Elmore, those guys, right? So you need a guy that's kind of in that mold and kind of cut from that cloth. That opens up the offense. That opens up this fast-paced offense that we like to see Marshall run, that Marshall, I think, likes to run. They're successful when they have it. So, yeah, Jalen Spear, like I said, dude, they could have done a lot worse. They could have done, I think this is an excellent pickup for what Coach Jackson is going to hope to try to do in year one.
Have a pickup for women's basketball. Transfer Trey Shonda Williams is 6'2" forward from Columbia State Community College, and she commits to Julie Fulks' team.
Yep. She visited a couple of weeks ago, and I was cautiously optimistic that we would land this JUCO transfer. I mean, 6'2". That says we need that. We need that kind of stuff. It showed against James Madison last year in the conference tournament final. Like we needed some added size. I mean, guts will take you really far, and we had a lot of guts. We were a scrappy ass team, and we were damn good. But sometimes you need some added size. And Mahogany Matthews is not on the roster anymore, so we needed someone to be that presence. Abby Beeman's not going to be on the roster anymore, and her knack for coming down with rebounds is also gone. So you need someone that can score and rebound for you. And of course, we still don't fully know what Coach Fulks' offense is going to look like and how they're going to play. You can, I guess, kind of draw the line between Transylvania and Marshall and say, well, this is what I'm hoping to do, but we don't know what it's going to look like, especially in the first year. We're sitting here just asking the same questions that we asked about Coach Kim. We don't know what it's going to look like. But to average nearly a double-double, it's pretty good. 10 points a game, 9 rebounds a game. That's what you need. Marshall's going to have that. So if that translates right over to this Sunbelt women's basketball for Trishondra Williams, then great, because that's exactly what we're going to have. I don't think anybody is sitting here saying, you know what, she's going to need to be a 20-point per game scorer. She's going to need to be a 15 a game rebounder. I don't think anybody's thinking that. But starting to chip away, like we're talking about with the linebackers, chipping away at some of those tackles that are not on the roster this year, chipping away at some of those points per game and rebounds per game that are not on the roster. And she distributes the ball pretty well. So it's not just a down low post player, can't do anything else. She's an all-around versatile player. And this is a really good pickup for Coach Fulks. It really is. It really is.
Well, and let's say I don't have the stats in front of you. Let's say a third of those are offensive rebounds. It's an opportunity possibly for 6 points right there off of 3 offensive rebounds a game. So having a rebounder down low was something that we missed at times last year, like you alluded to on the height situation. But we should be playing more of a good defensive effort. So I'm looking to see what kind of low post defense that she's going to add to this as well. And Julie Fulks is kind of different defense than what we had with Kim Caldwell. We scored, our opponents scored the lowest in the nation against Julie Fulks' squad at the level that they were at. So does this mean that this she brought her in, for her low post defensive ability? I'm intrigued, by she knows defense. I have a feeling that she brought her in because she's going to fit her system. She has to be a good defender. That's one of the things that I'm looking forward on here. 10 points a game, 9 rebounds a game. It would be great if she replicates that, but if she brings low post defense and just the boards alone, that is going to be a huge addendum to this team.
Yeah,
I don't
I
really
would say
care
so.
about the points.
I would say so.
Yeah.
If you're looking at it from a defensive standpoint, if you can get 2-3 blocks a game, stay out of foul trouble so that
Mhm.
you're in the duration of the game, that's huge. I mean, look,
Yeah.
man, let's talk about some of the pieces that are still on the roster. We know are returning, come out of the portal. We know that's where a lot of the scoring is going to
Mhm.
come from. That's
Mhm.
why I'm saying nobody's expecting Trishondra to have to come in here and put up 20 points a game. Right?
Sure.
Meredith Mayer's out of the portal. That's big. That's a big boost. Alasia Hayes, Aislinn Hayes. That's a big boost to scoring. We know that.
Mhm.
And you still have other players that are remaining on the roster. Peyton Ilderton is going to be back. There's room here for everyone. No one person is going to have to carry the load. But just like with men's basketball, who's going to be that point guard? And you can't say who's going to be the next Abby Beeman. That's unfair. That's unfair to say, right? Because Abby Beemans just aren't everywhere. You know what I mean? So I still think you really need to find that gritty, gutsy guard that can do it all. I'm not saying that it's that player's not on the roster already, but what I am saying is that's a big, big loss, right? Both guards, Brianna Campbell and Abby Beeman, that's two huge pieces. You got to find one. If
Mhm.
you can't lose two and not go at least try to backfill with one.
Mhm.
So I still think that point guard is still out there. There's other pieces that are on the roster, and we know that. This is a great start. The first high school prospect for folks. Short time later, you get an instant impact player down low. The momentum is there. Let's see what we got, what they can continue to do.
Track and field also picks up a commit from Perry Patrone, and as we always say, there's not going to be a lot of info out there on track and field. Just have to see what their specialty is, what multiple specialties they might be. But welcome to the herd, Perry.
Perry Patrone. All right. I like it. Gonna stir it up here for the herd. I like that.
All right. And finally, we have baseball. They ended up ending their season being swept by Coastal. We had senior night or day, I guess it were, on Saturday, and we had 17 that were on there. Just really indicative to me the struggles seeing those 17 that were here, and most of them here for the entire time. And 3 to 4 of the years that they were here, they did not have a field. And we're talking about, again, I mentioned it on the show, the very night before the inaugural game at the Jack was the first time that the players got to go dress in their own clubhouse.
Mhm.
Not changing in cars, not changing by the porta potties, not changing in the parking lot, not changing at their apartment and walking over or driving over. They, for the first time, have a facility. They did not get to use the fruits of that during most of this season. So, yes, this was another building block, stepping stone year. You got this one past you, and now we're talking about getting recruits in here that will have hitting cages that they can go to when it's raining, and they will have a clubhouse that they can go to, and they will have the facilities that they need, and playing at home, even though you might have a home field up Route 2, it's still 20 minutes away or 15 minutes away, from having to drive up to it. And it wasn't really that great of a field. We had a good home field advantage this year at the Jack that we can build on, and I just see it going higher and higher for herd baseball, like we talked about a lot in the 5 things earlier this episode.
Yeah, I do too, man. And this is why I say this is a multi-year project for
Mm-hmm.
Coach Beals, because this is a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
17. I
17.
mean, damn, dude. Look, I've got the article up. I just want to name some of these names so that your casual herd baseball fan and even your big time herd baseball fan that may not know who all was honored. Now, I guess this doesn't necessarily mean, we do this with football. Some guys walk and come back and play, right? So I don't know that all these guys won't return, but let's say they don't. Let's say they all are done with the herd. Just listen to these names: Trey Hondras, Jack Firestone, KB Peralta, Gabriel Cabrera, Chad Heiner, Cole Agamy, Peyton Schofield, Drew Harlow, Caden Kaiser, Nick Jodway, Gio Ferraro, Jay Kehoe, Alex McKay, Carter Lyles, Kalen Smith, Lenny Washington, and Owen Ayers. We talked about how many of those guys in different capacities just in this episode, right? And if you've gone to any games at the Jack or paid attention to this show at all, you've heard damn near every one of those names at least once over the course of this baseball season. So this is a tremendous amount of talent that has to be replaced, So this is not going to be easily done. This is not a 1-year fix. This is not even probably a 2-year fix. But with all of these departures, or maybe a good portion, even if 50% of them depart, that's 9 roster spots at minimum you're looking at probably. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot. But I think Greg Beals has proven at his previous stops and a little bit here at Marshall that he can go find that talent. And you don't always have to hit the portal to find it. We've got some of our high school prospects that have been all about the herd that are winning awards that I've seen across the social media timeline. So it's not just about portal. Portal is great for instant impact, and guys like, you talk about, they're already adjusted to college life. They already have the grind. They've already developed. They're grown a little bit more. They've grown into their bodies, all of that kind of stuff. But it doesn't always have to be just portal to just fill out your roster. There's some young talent that is on its way to Huntington, West Virginia from the high school ranks. Some of it from down here really close to me. So where do we turn our sights? It's recruiting, it's paying attention to what's going on, and it's starting to see, all right, well, who walked that is actually going to be a grad student next year or something like that. We'll have to figure all that out because I don't know. So I'm hoping that some of these guys went through senior day unsure of if they're returning or not. They could, but they're unsure if they want to. So I can't even say cautiously optimistic. I'm just intrigued to see what the new look of herd baseball is going to be moving forward. Because if 17 guys walked and 17 guys exit the roster, that's a lot of people to come up and fill a roster with. That's a lot. But the shining star is Bryce Blevins isn't one of those 17. So your all conference pitcher that you can really truly build at least one game a week around is currently still on the roster.
Well, that does it for us for taking you around the herd. So you got anything else?
I do not. I will say this: we're gonna probably start getting into position group breakdowns pretty soon. So for all of you folks that have been starved for football, we'll be notching that series up here pretty soon. But man, I think this year, unlike any other year, it's going to be extremely difficult to prognosticate because the portal just seems to be this even crazier thing. So you may prognosticate your projected starters, and then those guys are gone in 2 weeks. Yep. It's going to be tough. So we're going to try our best to be as accurate as we can, but accuracy for projected starters, I don't think is a thing. I think it's more like if nothing changes, this is who I expect to be there. But anyway, football season is about to ramp up for us on the ThunderCast. So just be ready for that. That's all I got.
I don't have anything either. So I'll just say next week I will be gone, waiting to see if we're going to have an episode with someone in my stead, or if we're going to have one, as soon as I get back, because it's not going to be that long. You won't go very long without an episode. But no matter what, we will be getting some content out to you on social media. KD handles all that stuff on Twitter. So if you're not following us on Twitter, really need to be doing so. want to piggyback off of what you said earlier, and it's a great time to share all of our stuff. ThunderCast.online, our Twitter handle, our Facebook account, our Instagram. You do a great job over on Instagram putting those shorts out that are little snippets from the episodes. So share with another herd friend that may not be aware of us. We had some more of that going on recently with giving tickets away. You know, people ask them to share the ThunderCast with a friend to get entered into our drawing and everything for the final baseball season. So plenty of stuff and content to go around.
Yeah.
But with that, whether you see us at the Joan, whether you see us at the Jack, whether you see us at the Cam, no matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, go herd.
Go herd. We'll see you when we see you. Hey.